watch what you post, watch what you post, watch what you post, because you don't know who's watching you. And so they looked at my page and they got Alex. I called them. They said, yes, we saw your story on Good Morning America, and we want to Skype with you tonight. I said, tonight? They said, yes, can we Skype with you within an hour? I said, no problem. So I live maybe 40 minutes away from Stony River. I told my cousin, who was my neighbor, I said, bring my food home with you. I said, I got to go. I fireballed home. When I said it's the grace of God, I didn't get no tickets. I was fireballing home. Plus, I had to make sure my background was right. So I threw stuff on the floor and make sure the background was right. And I interviewed with the DeGeneres show that night. And they said that if we like your concept, we'll call you back tomorrow and we'll let you know. They called me back that night.
If you're new to my channel, welcome. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more inspiration and tips to become a more resilient and confident leader of others or even just your own life.
Hey everybody, I'm back with another episode of So What Success Stories. And today I am talking to my longtime friend, Michael Scruggs. Michael is a site coordinator with Agape Child and Family Services, and he is a mentor, and he's done some incredible things. But I have known Michael since I think around 2007.
Yeah, no, it was honestly, it was a little bit before then because, yeah, I was still working at Clear Channel. So that was 2003, 2005. So it was a little bit before then. Yeah.
So we go way back.
We go way back. Yeah.
We go way back. But since then, both of us have done some pretty interesting things. And I'm super excited to talk to Michael about his journey from being in clergy to being a celebrity to doing some really amazing things, especially as an educator and a mentor and a role model. So Michael, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, first of all, let me say this. I am so proud of you, Summer. And knowing somebody a long time and you grow up with people and you watch them go from one point in life to another point, and it's all growth. It's all God, and it's all marvelous to see. And so I am so excited to be on your platform and you giving me the opportunity to be here and just really talk. I grew up in Memphis. I grew up in South Memphis. Let me say this. I'm a product of South Memphis. I attended Stafford Elementary School, and then I went to Snowden Junior High School. As y'all hear me saying junior high, now it's middle school, so they're showing my age. And then I went to the high school, Central. I got to always shout out Central High School. I went to Central High School. Then after that, I went to Clark Atlanta University. And then I went to University of Memphis, where I graduated and got my bachelor's degree from. And then Union University, where I received my master's. And so I'm a native product of Memphis. If I had to tell the truth, when I think about Memphis, I think about homegrown. I'm still a member of the same church that I've been a part of all my life, which in December, will be 44 years. And, honestly, I come from a church that, Bishop G.E. Patterson, the late, great Bishop G.E. Patterson, he impacted my life so much. And when I think about that, I think about service. And, a lot of times when we think about church, we think about just Sunday mornings. And one of the things that I think about with him is he put service and to serve. And so I always wanted to serve my community. And I think about Stafford Elementary, which was the foundation of my life. I'm still friends with my childhood best friend since kindergarten. That's Dennis. So Dennis and I go way back. And I think about, how having that foundation of literally being a community servant. And so that's a little bit about me. Memphis is what I love. I love Memphis, and I love giving back to Memphis.
I love it. And I was saying, I'm still friends with my childhood best friend too. That's what I was saying.
Oh, it makes a difference, because honestly, those are the people before we even became successful. I think about Dennis and I think about Keenan. Keenan and I have probably been friends the longest because he was my first friend in life. And I think about the two of them, and also John. I think about the three of them, rather, that before all of this happened, they were my friends. So before any success, anything that I've ever garnered, they were there. And the good thing about it is they're still here. And that says a lot because those people know us beyond all the lights, cameras, and action.
All the tears and the
all the tea.
you know, right. Let's get into it. Let's get into it. So in this program, I have what I call the So What Success System. It is my belief, and I think you believe it too, that anybody can be successful if they learn how to overcome obstacles, eliminate excuses, and calculate choices.
Yeah.
And they can achieve what I call So What Success. And that's success no matter what happens in life. And so, Michael, you have shared some things with me over the years. I've witnessed some things over the years, and I know you've had challenges like we all have.
Yeah.
But you have also had a lot of success, and I want to talk about the challenges. I want to talk about the success. But first, share some of the obstacles that you've had to overcome to get to where you are today, and just how you've overcome those obstacles.
That's a great question. Let me say this. If you don't have tests, you don't have victory. And if you don't have obstacles, you won't have success. You got to go through something and be tried, true. You got to go through the pruning and everything in order for you to really have success. One of the biggest things, and I'm very transparent about this, one of my biggest obstacles was I came from a single parent household. My parents divorced. And so my parents divorced. My father was not in the home. And so a lot of times when you think about people who are raised in a single household, people always say that you're not going to be successful because you got to have two parents. And, you know, it's a song that says, I come from a poor family, didn't have much, but the Lord been good to me. Now, I didn't come from no poor family, but we didn't have a lot. Let me say this, you know, I've lived in the projects. I lived in the hood. You know, so I know how it is not to have, but I never was that child that really wanted what everybody else wanted. I just wanted to be stable. I just wanted to have some food. And my mother, shout out to her, she made sure that I had the basic things in life. So one of my biggest obstacles was I didn't have a silver spoon in my mouth. You know, honestly, I had to work hard for everything. And people told me, and I'm not going to call names, but I'm going to tell you this. There was a person in my life who was very a part of my blood, let me say it like this, who told me that I would never be anything, that I would not amount to anything. This same person today is the person who tells everybody that they're proud of me. And so it's amazing how things, you know, circle and reverse. But I had to overcome self-esteem. And people would think you got low self-esteem as strong as you come off. I was always taught when you come out in public, you put on your best. But inwardly, Summer, I was hurting, you know, because I didn't have what the other kids had. And I didn't think that I was going to really survive and really make it because you looking at your present circumstance compared to where you want to go. But my mom, I have to say this, my mother I always say that her appetite is bigger than her pockets. Because my mama has always been, you know, folks filing mentality over poor folks. Now we used to eat at poor folks on Union, and my mama was always like, folks filing, you always think big, and she always told me, you know, dare to be different, Michael, dare to be different. You're not like everybody else. And I did things that my mother, if I had to tell the truth, that she couldn't even imagine that I was going to do. I did those things, and I would do stuff really without even her permission. I connected myself. I'll never get Minerva Jonathan, the late Minerva Jonathan. She was one of the first Black females who ran for mayor back in 1986, 1987. And she and I had this conversation at Four-Way Grill about politics. And so I was always intrigued with people who were successful. And so I aligned myself with that. So overcoming single parent household, people telling me that I would never amount to anything. And that really fueled my success and my drive to do better.
I love it. I love it. I love it. It's so interesting. You even said that. I actually did a podcast interview yesterday and on fatherhood, ironically. On fatherhood, it's called the Good Father.
Right.
Podcast. And that was one thing that we actually talked about is how sometimes people in our lives that are closest to us will be the very ones to tell us we aren't going to amount to anything. I've experienced that too. You can imagine how I was counted out as a 15-year-old mom. Yeah. But then are the main cheerleaders and saying, yeah, that's mine. I had something to do with that.
There you go.
It's not the case. But I like your attitude on it too. And it's just stay positive and just keep moving forward. It's like, you know the truth. And probably everybody knows the truth.
Yeah. And then you have to forgive. Let me say this. You have to forgive in order for you to be blessed. And in order for you to be successful, you have to forgive and you have to move forward. And forgiveness is not always about the other person. Forgiveness is for your growth. And sometimes, I'm just going to tell the truth, because that very person who told me this has never said they were sorry. But I had to forgive because my blessings is bigger than petty stuff. And so I just had to move forward.
Yes. And I can't wait to start to talk about some of the blessings that you've experienced in your life. But the second part is so a success system is about eliminating excuses.
Yeah.
We all have obstacles, and you shared some big ones, because even, being the product of a single parent household, growing up with a single mom, it's a huge one. And there are millions of people who don't overcome that, or who are not successful. And that's a big reason why.
Yeah.
But you did overcome that. You had to eliminate some excuses to get to that point. Talk about some of the excuses you've had to eliminate throughout your life.
The excuses that I had to eliminate for myself was, well, I don't have the means, so I can't do it. And for me, it was telling myself, stop telling yourself what you can't do and just go ahead and do it. It takes faith to step out on nothing and to believe that something is there. And I literally, my whole life has been a faith walk. I literally had to just step out and just do it. And like I said, I did things that my own mom didn't think, not that she think I couldn't do it, but she just didn't know that I was going to do it. And I just did it because I always just wanted to think big and just step out. So for me, eliminating the procrastination, because a lot of times we procrastinate so much on things. And the more we talk about what we can't do, the further you get behind on really accomplishing what you need to do. And so for me was telling myself stop telling myself what I couldn't do, and also surrounding myself with people who invested into what I could do. For its words, affirmations are powerful. So people literally mentorship, telling you that, hey, you can do this. Going to people, letting the pride down. And even as a young age, and just going to people and say, look, this is what I want to do in life. How can I do it? How can I be successful? How can I get here? I remember talking to two people who are two of my, I call them my big brothers, but they really kind of helped me in the community service realm. And that's Bobby White and Ed Stanton. And I remember going to them and saying, you know what, I'm going to shadow you all. When they was doing their community service, I said, I'm going to shadow you all, and I'm going to volunteer with you. And so I volunteered with them for years. And then once they kind of moved up in their careers and then they have the time to kind of keep doing the community service, I picked it up and I led it, and I just carried it on. So really surrounding yourself with people who invest a lot into you, and you never forget the people who open up the door.
I love it. And a good shout out to both of them. I know both of them and the amazing work that they do.
Yeah.
It's amazing that they planted that seed inside of you, and that seed that you have planted in other young people, especially young men, and how powerful that is.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing. The third part of the SOA success system is calculating choices. So you've made some choices throughout your life. I've witnessed a lot of them. Talk about some of the calculated choices that you've made to get to where you are today. And talk about some of the places that you actually are today and some things that you've accomplished up to this point.
Yes, I'm going to tell you the biggest calculated choice that I made that has literally propelled me to where I am now. I made this choice 15 years ago. And that was to leave my job and to change careers and become a teacher. So in 2008, I was working from 2005 to 2008. I was working at the Med, the Regional Medical Center. I was a project manager for the fundraising department for the Med. And one of my closest friends, Ramon Lord, we've been friends since 10th grade. He was working at Memphis schools at the time, and he told his boss, he said, I got a friend who really needs to teach school. I was already mentoring on the side. And he said, you need to be in the classroom. And I kind of always wanted to teach. And I prayed about it and everything. And I said, well, if I'm going to teach school, the school that I need to teach at Central High School. I want to go back home and I want to give back to my school. That's exactly what I said. I said, I don't want to teach at no other school. The first school that called me was Central High School. And that's the first school that I interviewed. And I interviewed on a Friday. This was July. I interviewed on a Friday. They called me back Monday, the week before school was starting, and told me that, we're going to hire you. Dr. Rod Peterson. Oh, man, I never forget Dr. Rod Peterson. He was an alum of Central High. He hired me. He was the assistant principal at the time. Man, a great guy. And I'm big on really like verbally thanking people who opened up the door, because had it not been for Rod and many black men, I would not have even taught school. And Ramon, I thank God for good friends who saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And so I calculated that one. I was like, you know what? I took some days off. I put my 2 weeks notice in once I came back off vacation that Monday, because I had gotten the confirmation letter. I always say, wait on the letter. Wait on that letter. Don't put that notice in yet. Right. Yeah. Don't till you get that letter now. I need to make sure I had the letter with that salary on there saying peekaboo. Because if it wasn't no money on there, I wasn't quitting. And so I need to make sure that everything was lined up. And that was the best decision, best calculated decision that I can say that I made in my career. Because I'm going to tell you this, Summer, if it were not me being a coming from a single parent household, if it were not for me feeling at times fatherless, I would never have been an educator. I would never have been a mentor, because what I did, Summer, I used my problems in order for me to pour into somebody else to break that cycle. I always wanted to break the generational curse. And I am a first generation of doing that, because I'm the first person on my maternal side that ever went to college. So a lot of things that I did, I broke the cycle. And so I poured back into my students. And that was the best decision I've ever done, because they changed my life. I'm going in to change theirs, Summer, but they changed my life. And giving back, my life is about service. It's not even about me. My life is about service and giving back to others. And giving back to them was my therapy. And I became delivered and healed from trauma, because men do go through trauma, whether we want to admit it or not. Men go through trauma. And a lot of my trauma was self-esteem and people telling me what I couldn't do. And there's other things that was going on even internally. And I had to literally pour into them, because these young people, these people needed me. And they didn't care nothing about where you came from, the single parent household. They needed help. And at the end of the day, a lot of them could relate to me because they were in the same situation.
Absolutely. It's so interesting, because that's part of the conversation we were having yesterday too, is that thing that's so undesirable for you, that was probably painful for you, that was hard for you, is a very reason why you were so effective at what you were doing.
Oh, yeah.
Why you were so good, and why you could relate to those young people, why you could be exactly what they needed.
Yeah.
And so that's powerful. Now talk about what happened in that classroom, aside from you changing their lives and them changing your life, helping you to heal. Talk about you running around that classroom.
Whoa, that was the best cardio I could ever get in my life, running around that classroom. So in 2008, many black men, that's my girl, my mentor, she was my former teacher. She was the PLC coach at Central at the time. And we were sitting in new teacher orientation. And she told us, it was 5 of us. She said, come up with a mantra for your class. And I was like, what am I going to come up with? And I actually came up with another mantra before I am number one. I was literally in the middle of teaching, and I am number one came about. And I started coming up with I am number one. I have everything it takes to be number one. I'm successful. I am great. I woke up with a purpose. My day will be great. Scholars get scholarships. Scholars get scholarships. We all get scholarships. And so every morning, before I even started running, I didn't start running until later on in my teaching career, but before I even started running, my students had to recite this every single day, because what I want to do is set the tone. I want to set the tone for positive affirmations, because at the end of the day, I don't know where they came from. I don't know what happened at home. So let me go ahead on and alleviate all of that, and let me set the tone. And I set the tone every morning, every day. I had 6 periods. So 6 times a day. And if I didn't even say it, my students would blurt out and start saying, I am number one. And then as I moved on to the last school where I taught at, the last 2 schools where I taught at, one being Dr. Harrington, Dr. Willie Harrington, one of his charter schools. He didn't have high school at first. He opened up his school maybe 10 years before I even taught there. And I told Dr. Harrington, who was my first superintendent and a mentor of mine as well, I said, I'm going to come work at your school. And he said, you always said that. I said, I'm coming work at your school. He opened up that high school. I was his high school history government teacher. and I started running around the classroom. My students started getting up and running. And on this particular day, this happened at his school. This was February 28th. Michael Quander, who was a reporter at News Channel 3, he said that his last day was that day, but he wanted to end his last day with something positive. And he had heard how I mentor my students, and I got this affirmation. And so he came and did an interview on me, did with News Channel 3, and the interview aired that night. And it was a great interview. I didn't think none of it. I'm like, oh man, this is a nice interview. Good job, local person making Memphis look good. I'm like, cool. The next day, March the 1st, the next day, I was in my classroom, in that same classroom that he interviewed, which was the worst class. Let me just say that was my worst class, but the class that loved me, they loved me, and I loved them. They were just very talkative, and they used to think I was kind of mean because I had to be hard on them, but there was a class that was on television, and I never forget my principal, Miss Angela Jackson, came in the room, and she said, Mr. Scruggs, you got to go. I said, I got to go. I'm like, where I'm going? She said, Good Morning America is on the phone. I said, Miss Jackson, calm down. I said, that's Good Morning Memphis. It's not Good Morning America. She said, no, Mr. Scruggs, it's Good Morning America. Come on. And so she running down the hallway. Let me say this, Miss Jackson is fine. So I had no problem running behind her. I was like, she on these tall heels. I said, let me run behind Miss Jackson. So I'm running behind Miss Jackson. She was a pretty one. So I'm gonna run behind her. And so we go in her office, and Good Morning America was on the phone. They said, this is so-and-so from Good Morning America. That's why I tell people all the time, you never know who's watching you. You never know who's watching you. And you never know who's watching these news outlets. So Good Morning America saw the story on News Channel 3. They wanted to do a story on me. They did the story on me, Summer. Within 2 hours, this story went, I had never heard of what viral was, but this story went to 1.3 million views within 2 hours. And I was like, man, I'm getting all of these, this stuff coming, and like, man, your story is on ABC. You on Good Morning America. I'm like, oh, me? I could not believe this. Then after that, it was the end of the day, and I was heading to my family my cousins, Yolanda, Monica, and Kiera, they wanted to celebrate what was going on. We was at Stony River. I couldn't even eat my food because my principal called me again and said, CNN trying to call you. So CNN called me, and I did an interview with CNN. Then after I did the interview with CNN, CBS with Gayle King, her producers called me. So I did the interview with them. Soon I got back in to order my food. My best friend, Alex, and that's my lifesaver. He has saved my life. My best friend, Alex, he called me and said, Mike, the DeGeneres show, it reached out to me. And I said, dude, this is exactly what I said. I said, why would they call you, dummy? That's exactly what I said. I said, why would they call you? I said, what does it look like Ellen them called? I said, Ellen, how they even find you? He was like, dummy. He called me that back. He was like, man, you call them and you see what they want. I was like, okay, Alex. I said, I'm going to call. He said, man, call them right now. So he said they messaged him on Facebook. Let me say this. They went through my Facebook to see what I was posting, how my page looked, and that's how they found Alex. Again, watch what you post, watch what you post, watch what you post, because you don't know who's watching you. And so they looked at my page, and they got Alex. I called them. They said, yes, we saw your story on Good Morning America, and we want to Skype with you tonight. I said, tonight? They said, yes, can we Skype with you within an hour? I said, no problem. So I live maybe 40 minutes away from Stony River. I told my cousin, who was my neighbor, I said, bring my food home with you. I said, I got to go. I fireballed home. When I said it's the grace of God, I didn't get no tickets. I was fireballing home. Plus, I had to make sure my background was right. So I threw stuff on the floor and make sure the background was right. And I interviewed with the DeGeneres show that night. And they said that we like your concept. We'll call you back tomorrow and we'll let you know. They called me back that night and said the manager wants to interview you tomorrow. I said, no problem. So they interviewed me the next day. They were not interested in the fact that I was a school teacher. They was interested in the fact that you mentored. That's the reason why they brought me out there. They didn't talk anything about the school that I was at. They wanted to talk about the fact that you take your former students to college, you drive them to school, you do all this mentoring outside of your job. They were just impressed with that. And so they called me that Thursday and said, I interviewed Wednesday night. Thursday morning, I did the Skype interview. They said, we like your concept. If Ellen likes your concept, we'll call you the next day. They said, but you can't do any more interviews. They said, you can't do any more interviews. You can't do anything. I said, okay. And so they called me Friday at 11:15 a.m. and said, Mr. Scruggs, we flying you out to Ellen. And so they flew me out that Tuesday. And I never forget when I found out that I was going to Ellen. I bust out the door, ran around the building. I was just running, screaming. I can't believe this. And so I'm like, it felt like a dream to me.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, they flew me out there that Tuesday. I taped Ellen Wednesday. This was in March of 2017. I taped Ellen Wednesday. The show did not air to June the 8th. It was 4 months, and I couldn't do any interviews. I couldn't tell anybody about it. I couldn't talk about it until Ellen released the press, and they did the week before. And so I ended up on the Ellen DeGeneres show, and from there, I did a Google documentary the next year with Google, which is still Google's #1 documentary. They did a teacher ad, an education ad on the top educators. They picked 20 of us, the top educators in the world. That ad is still at 22 million views. I did Channel 1 News. I've done so many other things, and some stuff is still like going around now. Still syndicated now, which is a blessing. And then it landed me from there. I wanted to change. I kind of wanted to do some different things, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah, that's the major success of me mentoring. It ended me on television.
So I just learned a lot. So I knew you were on Ellen, but I didn't know all the other stuff. And I have to say, this I can relate because I've been on CNN headline news, and they found me on Facebook, and they sent me a message on Facebook when I was working at FedEx, and I felt guilty for being on Facebook while I was at work. Right. And they asked me if I could interview in an hour on Skype. And I went home and got myself together and came back and had to figure out how to use Skype. That's how bad.
I did too.
I didn't even know how to use it.
Right.
So that is an incredible story. It's just a blessing. And that's because one, your friend saw something in you as an educator. And you listened and you received it, and you had people who helped you along their journey to be an educator. Then you had the right heart. And you did the work as an educator, and you it's a blessing. It's just a blessing. I'm just looking at how it all came, but not because you saw it. Publicity. Not because you saw any of that. And I just think it's absolutely amazing. Now, didn't you also get money for your class?
I did. I got Ellen them that gave me a check for the work that I do, and wanted me to sow it back into the young people, which I did. And I went on Ellen that weekend. I did a back to school thing. And my students, former students and mentees, they didn't care. They was excited I was on Ellen. But the biggest thing was, you said you was coming to our college. They wanted to see if I was going to remain Mr. Scruggs, or Scruggs as they called me. And I never lost sight of, the mission and the purpose. Yes, being on TV was good, and it changed my life. Ellen changed my life. Because that was the #1. Her show was the #1 at the time, the #1 talk show. It was aired in 26.6 million homes, and it changed my life. And people to this day still say, "Man, you was on Ellen," and that's something that that I will never forget. Even meeting her was, just nice. And her producers stayed in touch with me up until today. Honestly, her producers stayed in touch with me. They follow me on social media. And you was talking about something that is so important. How it's important for people to see something in you. And it's important not to seek publicity. And I tell people all the time, I didn't know what viral was. And people would email me and message me. They do it even now. Like, how can I get on television? How can I blow up? I really don't know. Like, honestly, I don't know, because if you're seeking for that, it's not authentic.
The answer is to do the work.
Do the work and be seen. Do the work, doing the work. And I think that what comes from the heart reaches the heart. And at the end of the day, do the work. And social media is good. Social media is a great platform that you can really use for positivity. But at the end of the day, be authentic, because even some stuff that I do, I don't post. because for the simple fact is that it's not for the world to see. Everything is not for, if I posted everything that I did for other people, then social media be shut down. It ain't it ain't for everybody to see. It's for God to be glorified, and then he'll give the increase. And it's always good to, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit more as we go on, being surrounded by the right people and making sure your circle is good.
So that's good. So real good. So, okay, Michael, you have proven you are a success man. You know how to overcome obstacles, eliminate excuses, and calculate choices to achieve success. But what is your personal definition of success?
My personal definition of success is the impact that you make on others. Because if you're just successful in your eyes and nobody else around you is, that's not success to me, because who's benefiting? You're the only one, and you're being selfish. And so for me, my personal definition of success is when I see my former students going to college, getting jobs, getting opportunities in the military, whatever their success story is, that's success for me, because that's my audience. My mentees, that's my audience. My nephews and nieces, that's my audience. My cousins, those are my audience. So when I see them doing well, personally, that's success for me.
That is. I love it. Last question. And tie in any additional information you want to share. What piece of advice, you've been dropping nuggets this whole but what's one piece of advice that you would give someone watching this who wants to be successful, but maybe has some obstacles similar to the obstacles that you've stated? What would you tell them that they need to do to be successful?
You know, you talked about eliminating excuses. And I'm going to tell you this, you can't change your past, but God can change your future. So at the end of the day, you know, you have faith, even when you can't see how is it going to happen, you still got to believe. And my mind always, and I used to reference the Bible a lot, but my mind goes to this scripture over in Habakkuk when he said, write the vision and make it plain. You got to write the vision. You got to make the vision plain, and it has to make sense. And sometimes it might not make sense. Let me say this. Sometimes it might not even make sense to you, but at least write the vision and at least put some action behind it. And so I will say this, eliminate excuses, hang around the right people. Hang around the right people, because if you are hanging around people who are not doing nothing, that's a song that said nothing for nothing leaves nothing. If you still hang around the right people who are not doing anything, you know what? You're going to be in the same rut. And so I would say make sure your circle is feeding into you. Your circle should never drain you. Your circle should feed into you, and take advice from people. And when I think about my circle, and I have to shout some of them out because it's some people who really helped me when I have nothing. I talked about Alex, my best friend Alex, and Dennis and Keenan. Keenan been with me since day one. He's the Peabody Duck Master now. He's been with me since day one. And I think about my best friend Nunu and Ramon and Chris and so many others, Darrell, who have been with me when I didn't have nothing, you know, when I didn't have anything, but they poured life into me. And I talked about Bobby and Ed, and my mentor, Dr. Ken Brown. He was at University. He's my mentor at University of Memphis. He was my professor at University of Memphis, and he's still my mentor to this day. Man, you know, when you watch, and Black men especially, because we really didn't have a lot of role models that were televised, I would say, or publicized a lot. And it was hard. It's always hard for Black men and Black people in general. And when I saw Dr. Ken Brown and Rod Richmond and Levi Pointer, those men, even the way they dressed, like they dressed up, they wore ties, they wore shirts, they were clean cut. I said, that's how I want to be. And I followed that. You know, I didn't have the best ties and the best suits and the best clothes. And my first tailored suit came from Art Horn. I was 24 years old. Art was my next door neighbor. And Art was moving out. And I never forget, Art gave me so many clothes and so many suits and shoes. And I'll never forget, man, he changed my life, Summer, because he was like, look, man, I like you. He said, man, you're going to go somewhere. And when I wanted to give up, Art told me, he said, you can't do it. He was hard on me. And you need people who are going to pour life into you. Eliminate the excuses. Watch your circle. Bring your pride down. Listen, because we don't know everything. Listen to the right people and impact somebody else's life. What's been given to you, give it to somebody else. What's been embedded into you, give it to somebody else. And my former students, I would be nothing without them. And some of them going to see this. I will be nothing without them, because without them, there is no I am number one. Without them, there is no Michael Scruggs. And so I give them a lot of respect. And, Summer, you and I both have been blessed to receive awards and accolades nationally and locally. And I tell people all the time, be appreciative of everything someone gives you. Whatever the platform is, whatever the award is, say thank you, because they don't have to do it. Nobody is obligated to acknowledge us. And so let's make sure that, you stay humble and listen.
So I felt all of it. That was good. That was good. And like you said, I know it was from your heart. Every bit of that was from your heart. And I don't have anything else to say, but thank you. But thank you for all the years that I've known you, for all that you have done for all the people in this community. Thank you for being such a good representative of a Black man. That's important to me, raising a Black son. And you hit on it a number of times, even when you didn't even directly address it, the importance of understanding that somebody is always watching you. You were always watching somebody else, and you recognize that people were watching you, and still do all the time. And people will see this that you and I will never, ever see.
Yeah.
Will impact people. And so it is important. It's so important for us to understand that somebody's always watching.
And shout out to you. Look at you. Let me say this with Summer. I'm going to say this quickly. I remember when Summer was a young mom, and Summer beat the odds, on raising a son and, staying focused when you was at FedEx, and then now you're an entrepreneur killing it. Summer beat the odds. And when you see people like us, we don't have, silver spoons in our mouths. If we can do it, you can do it too. So I'm praying that people, when they watch this, that you are inspired. And we're not done yet. This is just the beginning. We're not done yet. So this inspires me to keep going.
I love it. I love it. I love you. I love you.
I love you too.
I love what you are doing, and I appreciate you so much. And I'm so moved by this, and I know that this interview is going to change lives. Thank you so much, Michael.
Thank you for having me. I finally made it to the big platform. So thank you for having me. I'm honored.
I love it.
If you're new to my channel, welcome. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more inspiration and tips to become a more resilient and confident leader of others, or even just your own life.